Okay, so on this presentation for the term project for CIS 285, first, this is the class diagram that I made based on the requirements. So the requirements were, and what the system does, we have user accounts, which in this one, this is user account GUI, this is what the user would interact with, and right here it's the user. For these, users can create accounts and log in, and access their like personal information and like the balance info. And this table class just stores in the data. And then group management. This is the group manager. It is obviously tied to the group. This is what links the group and the user, and then you have user group, which this just stores the data of every user that is in each group. And the group manager, the group has the group ID, the user ID, the group name, the group details, and the group members. So each user that is inside of a group, there's like the data and all that stuff. And the group manager is the manager. Basically, there's the removing member or adding member, list members. Edit group, view group information, track the group, and group name. This is when for each user that wants to track group information and group data and members. We have expense GUI. Also, it's what the user interacts with, because create expense is like the main thing that I wanted to choose, or like the main component. Because without this one, then these all rely on the expense and expense manager. So basically, when the user that is inside of a group creates an expense, they can calculate the share, add the user, remove user, or enter the expense details, like the amount and stuff, and the date, description, the receipt image, and involved user IDs. It goes to the manager. It obviously depends on the dependency on the manager, because this is what kind of like holds it all together. This has the amount, the description, and basically edit expense, delete expense, and view expense. And basically, the report here, the report is when the user generates a report. When the user generates a report, this is all the functions here, and the report has these dependency transition lines. These ones, basically, it just shows that when the user generates a report, the report is going to depend on the expense data, the payments, and the balance. And that's how it can generate. And then it can generate either a custom report or a standard report. With the custom report, obviously there's gonna the user has to put the details and the information. And notification, when notification, basically it depends on the expense. Obviously, if expense is not created, there's not going to be a notification. So when a new expense is created, it sends a notification to the group. The users and the group members involved will be notified. Yeah, and then for expense manager is basically what the approval will have to depend on the data from the expense manager. And this is the balance. Balance is going to be in the expense manager, dependency and access. And this is what stores the balance data. It stores the amount double. The user, what each user owes, and what each user, like which user owed IDs. and this is what holds the expense data. So this is the class diagram. And now the sequence diagram. This is the first sequence diagram, and that one is basically expense creation. So here's the user. The first thing the user is going to do is log in. And then this is going to be the boundary. The boundary is basically, it's the expense view. This is what the user is going to interact with. So the expense view, basically, when the user clicks on this gives you like that, the whole axis. And then when the user clicks on create expense, it goes to the expense manager and then creates expense. And then if the user wants to manage expense, it goes to the expense manager and opens that. And then view expense goes back, and then this is the expense GUI. Users can add users to other members to the expense, and this one is obviously by accessing the group manager. The group manager has data for the members in the group, so you can select the involved participants in the group data, and then the user group links the group members that are stored in the group. So this is how it selects group members. And then expense will be saved in the expense manager, and this is when the user joins the expense. And and then obviously the user will have to save it right here in the expense manager, because this one also like calculates the shares by each user based on like the split and based on the details when the user enters the details. This is the control object, and these are the entities, and this is lifeline, swim lane, lifelines, sorry. I have them like that, and that's about it for the sequence diagram. And then the second sequence diagram, basically this is the actor. The actor is always like represents the user, basically. So this is the boundary, the control, and the two entities that I have. This one is for approval workflow. If we go back to the class model or the use case model right here, this is the approve, new expense notification, approved right here. This is the approve, so it's like after. So the approval is when first the user is going to open approval request. So basically in the expense, there's going to be requests for approval, like when a group member makes change in the expense, it notifies other members. So this is a member that is notified of a request, because changes are not automatically saved unless they are reviewed and approved. This is one of the requirements in the function in the software requirements in splitsmart.com. The user opens approval request, and the expense view will load the request lists from the expense manager. it's gonna load them into the surface right here, and then the user can choose the ones available. And then the expense manager will get pending changes. It's basically just returns data to the expense manager, the data of the changes and the adjustments that were made, and then it loads the changes made into the expense view where the user can interact, and then the user basically starts to review changes. So there are two ways for this to happen. When the review changes are approved, the changes are approved right here, then the user will click changes approved, and which goes back to the expense manager, and then it goes to the expense and it saves the changes to the database in this entity approved, and then it's going to return to the actor, to the expense view basically, and confirms the changes, and the user will confirm the changes, like confirm. It's gonna, yeah, obviously applies the changes and then it changes them. So expense manager applies changes in the expense, and that's how the changes are updated, and then they are saved when they're approved. However, if the review changes are rejected, then the expense view user clicks rejected. The expense view tells the expense manager they are rejected. Hence why the expense manager will reject all any changes that were made in the expense, and it will never reach the approved status. Instead, it will go back and return to the expense view as changes discarded, and that's how it won't save. This is probably my favorite one I made. That one was fun. Now state diagram. My first state diagram is user accounts. So the initial is the user goes into splitsmart.com, and then they are taken into the user accounts form. So this one, then the user has two options: the login option and the create account option. Once a user logs in and enters details and whatnot, the user gets logged in into where it reaches state active. If not, the login will be failed, and then the system goes back to failed login. And when the user click create account, it creates account upon entering information. It goes in the active state, and then it finishes final. This is just for login and whatnot. But yeah, the next one is balance tracking. The next state diagram is balance tracking. This one models how the system responds when the user requests a balance summary. So the user clicks balance summary, track balance summary, initial right here, and then track. And then the balance will be, the system will basically calculate balance upon balance selection, and then it will calculate the balance. When the user clicks calculate balance, it calculates the balance, and then the system is going to calculate the balance, and then the system is going to display balance summary, and then it's going to display that balance in what user owes what, and how much the amount is owed, and how much the user owes another user. Basically, like when the user clicks balance summary, the system calculates balances and then shows who owes whom, and then records the updated balances. basically just like updates it and tracks it. And then these transitions basically tracks it, and this is basically just overall of how transitions into tracked balances, and then it archives them, and this is the final. And then this is the third state diagram, and this one is about generating the report. In the system requirements, for the report, the system should provide summaries and reports showing expenses, balances, and payments, and the system should allow users to generate custom reports based on date ranges. Basically, the report and the requirements in the report, they were right here in the class diagram. This is the set date, get member, get report, generate custom report, standard report. And the state report right here, it's more simplified, more simpler. So here's, because I made it simpler because in also the non-functional requirements, it was easy to use, and initiative intersurface protects user data and prevents unauthorized access. So basically they wanted it easier. I just simplified it. So a user will click on report view inside of the generate report. So when you click on that, there will be two options. There's going to be select custom report or select standard report. And then basically when you click one of those, it will generate the report and it will display the report, and then this is going to be the final. And that's for the report. There's two options. For the expense, I can go back on that one. Basically, the user interacts with this to open approval requests. I mean, I already went through that one. But yeah, this one, the user interacts with this to enter details, enter expense details and expense manager stuff. This is the project PowerPoint. This is the create expense flow. User clicks create expense, system displays a form for the new expense, and the user joins expense. And then system saves expense to the database. User clicks on expense details. User enters the amount, the description, and how the expense will be shared. And the user clicks submit. So, and then it saves the expense right here. User account. Yeah. And then this is the event flow for the approval. User opens reports. User selects a group. System displays summary data. Create expense. And then the system displays form for the new expense, and user joins the expense. System saves the expense to the database. And then user enters the amount and date description, how the expense will be shared. It's right here in expense details. And yeah, system shows group members list, select group members, add members, and this is the flow of events for splitsmart.com. And then it clicks create account, and then balance tracking. Usually clicks balance tracking. System tracks and records balance. This is the generate report. There's two options, decision, and that's it. Here activity view. This is order rejected. Calculates the shares. And this one, this is an order right here. Once it's approved, will confirm the decision, save it approved to the database, update balance, and show confirmation. And this is the last one. And yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. So thanks for watching.